This is Stephanie, Talk Tales and Trivia. How are you this fabulous, wonderful, glorious week of 2017? I hope you're doing very, very well. I know I am. This episode is really my love, my passion, my tale for music. Well, okay, like most of our episodes, I'll start with a minor mention about the history of the phonograph, which allowed us to be able to play our beloved music. The record player, the turntable, the phonograph. As you can imagine, this was long before the invention of the CD. Some of you might not remember anything but the CD. But no matter your age, the CD was promulgated by its predecessors. If you are a history buff, then you most likely already know that Thomas Edison invented the phonograph in 1877. While other inventors had produced devices that could record sounds, Edison's phonograph was the first to be able to reproduce the recorded sound. Originally, the phonograph played rotating cylinders, but a few years later, in the 1890s, Emil Berlinger initiated the transition from the phonograph cylinders to flat discs with a spiral groove running from the far outside to the near center. Well, later improvements for the phonograph included modifications to the needle and the sound system. You know, it might seem funny today, and it does, but some record players were even tried in automobiles, but were quickly replaced by 8-track or cassette tapes. Well, of course, we all know 8-tracks were before my time, but I did have plenty of cassette tapes. And vinyl records were my favorite. They came in 3 different sizes, 78, 45, and 33 1/3 RPM long play. For me, it all started with the record player and the 33 1/3 long playing record. Pharmacies stocked 45 RPM records, that's rotations per minute, at their front counters for customers to buy. Usually the same songs that were played on the radio. Ah, yes, the radio, my all-time favorite medium, another marvelous invention that we will talk about in a future episode. It's interesting to think about how your own music history perhaps made you the person you are today. Well, you know, I could go on for hours telling you interesting facts about music, the history, great musicians and artists, recording studios, but as always, as you know, we have the internet for all that. I can only tell you my tale, my love, my passion, and the excitement about music. My tale for this episode is perhaps a lesson that I hope someone may learn from. I know I have mentioned in past episodes several personality traits that I have that you might have as well. I was an introvert and loved to create and do things on my own, and that included listening to music. I didn't have but a handful of friends, just acquaintances, and I was really okay with that. But before I get to the extremely informative high school years, let me go back a little, back to nearly the beginning, when I was still listening to my father's records of Arlo Guthrie, the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, and Creedence Clearwater Revival, old Frank Sinatra Christmas albums that I still love and play to this day. The only music I grew up with. Until the inevitable happened. And it does happen to us all. I branched out, went to school, and was exposed to people from different walks of life that had different life experiences and different passions. Some I liked, and some I didn't. Sometimes there is one factor that draws strangers together. For me, it was music. Strangers who become true friends through a common interest. My musical roots were in punk and alternative new wave music. You could ask me any music trivia of the day on any genre, really, and I would answer without hesitation. I just loved music. Back in the 1980s, my tastes in music and fashion were closely related. It does seem unusual today because fashion and music don't really go together anymore. Not like it used to, anyway. You see, it was in 1981 that MTV was created, and when videos were aired, the artists made a statement with the clothes they wore in those videos and in concert. So this meant that if I saw someone wearing Doc Martens or a miniskirt, which was not usual at the time, I would gravitate toward them because they more than likely had the same musical tastes and even might like the same bands as I did. If they were from around the metropolitan area, that was even better. I knew I'd run into them at the clothing store Trash and Vaudeville or the record store Bleecker Bob's in Greenwich Village or at a concert. But it wasn't just listening to the music. Oh, no. For me, it was reading music newspapers and magazines. Soho News, New Musical Express, The Village Voice. Learning, constant learning about musicians and bands, where they lived, what they did in their spare time. Were they ever like me? This was a music subculture that had more depth than anyone realized. The concerts I went to were all in New York City. I was fortunate to live so close. I, up until recently, had a shoebox full of all my concert ticket stubs. So I can tell you my first concert was Adam and the Ants, and I saw them at the Palladium. I went with my dad. And my last concert I saw was Brian Ferry from Roxy Music this past August. But in between these two concerts, there is almost 40 years. My musical taste may have widened, but it never really wavered or changed. I may not dress the part of a punk rock girl anymore, but there is a definite edginess or a spark of uniqueness in me. But no matter what, there is always going to be something we all somehow regret or feel that we should have done differently as we look back on our precious short lives. And so here I am almost 40 years later, wanting perhaps a do-over. What I haven't told you is that after my high school years of concerts and friends with similar music interests, I said goodbye to them all and didn't stay in touch. But then came another part of my life that was wonderful. You see, in 1984, I went on to study radio and become a vinyl spinning DJ with an on-air time slot every day. And I was the music director at the college radio station and was a teaching assistant to many students studying radio. I had an internship at a professional radio station every Thursday working in the music department and was well on my way. My dreams were being fulfilled right before my eyes. And so it was I earned my AOS degree in radio and television broadcasting. Why am I telling you all this? Only for one reason. I didn't follow through on my dream, my love, the desire that made my heart beat the most and the fastest. Yes, I graduated with all the knowledge to land an excellent radio position in probably the most prestigious place in the industry, the New York metropolitan area. I didn't even try to get that prestigious position, and I don't know why. And that is my biggest regret. Perhaps I should have aspired for greatness in the radio industry. Perhaps my life would have been better, or at least different. Perhaps more interesting and playful. Perhaps more fun. Or perhaps maybe not. But I'll never know. You see, if you have a passion or calling in you screaming to get out, you must act on it now. Don't, like myself, realize 40 years later that you let peers, co-workers, family, or so-called well-wishers put your dreams down. And don't wait. Let me ask you, why are you waiting? And what are you waiting for? These are the questions I pose to you this week. Rabbi Hillel has a quote I'd love to share with you now. I will let you interpret it as you wish. If I am not for myself, who will be for me? If I am only for myself, who am I? If not now, when? Are there dreams that you wish you had pursued, but rather pushed aside? We here at Talk Tales and Trivia would love to know your thoughts. As always, you can reach us at talktalesandtrivia@gmail.com. And you can go to talktalesandtrivia.com to see all the show notes for this episode and listen to past episodes. We hope that you have enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you next week. See